excited because I have a copy of Giant Killer, the Carlton Haselrig story. It chronicles the amazing life of six-time NCAA wrestling champion, also a great NFL career, Pro Bowler with the Pittsburgh Steelers, also gets into fall from glory and eventual triumph. An inspiration to us all is my friend Carlton Haselrig, who is here with us today with his lifelong friend Joe Greenwood, two guys that I've known for more than 4 decades. Class of 1984, Johnstown High School. Good to have you both with us today.
Good to be here.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Carlton, you have to tell us what this is like, because you're still a relatively young guy, but to have your story put within a book, what's that feel like?
Well, right now, it's sort of surreal, and we've been talking about it for quite some time. There's been people who've been saying, "Oh man, you need to put it in the book. You need to do this. You need to do that." And then finally, some people stepped up, and bang! It's here. And I feel very honored. I feel very pleased and very humbled to have a piece of my life history immortalized forever.
Yeah. Who is Kevin Emily? Because I think he tells a very interesting story here.
Well, Kevin Emily is a author who wrote a book that is called Pathfinders. It's about an African American wrestlers, and he chronicled the lives of maybe 15 to 14 African American wrestlers, throughout the early years in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I happen to be in one of those chapters. And his interview struck me as very well and very good. So, as somebody who, I've been looking for an author to write a book, and he was somebody who, struck me as being a pretty good author. So I asked him if he would be interested in writing a book specifically about me, and he accepted the challenge, and he did a fairly decent job.
And I think this is pretty cool that he actually came to Johnstown, too. He spent some time here to talk to a lot of people who helped influence your life as well, didn't he?
That's correct. He spent some time here in Johnstown. He really got into, immersing himself into the Johnstown experience and seeing what Johnstown was really about. He visited flood museums, different places around Johnstown that have historical value, and really tried to get into the essence of being, seeing what Johnstown was really about.
Mm-hmm. And I heard something fascinating that you said. I don't even know if you remember saying this, but I saw Kevin Emily talk that said that he wrote about things in the book that you didn't even know. Is that true?
Yes, that's correct. As going on in your life, and I'm sure there's things in your life that you might have forgotten. If somebody brought it to your mind, boom, just need one of those instant memories to make you remember certain things in your life. And there were certain things that I hadn't realized or I had forgotten. We've been around for a long time now, Bo. So.
Yes, indeed.
So there are some things that you might have forgotten, and some pleasant things and some things that I'd like to remember, and probably pretty hard, but he brought those things back to life.
Yeah, absolutely. So Joe, tell me, as somebody, one of the greatest athletes also that Johnstown produced, Joe Greenwood here, what makes Carlton's story so fascinating to you?
Number one, the thing that is very, interesting and crazy is the fact that Carlton is so humble.
Mm-hmm.
He's done some great things. Some things that will never be done again.
Right.
But you would never hear him talk about them. You almost have to force him to talk about them.
Yeah.
So it was to me, him finally wanting to talk about those things made me feel good.
Yeah. Now I know how I felt about this, but seeing him succeed, because at the time that he was breaking all these records at Pitt Johnstown, I was a student there also, so I get to interact with him from time to time also. But somebody you've been close to your whole life, seeing this happen, did this surprise you at all?
Well, the funny part was, Carlton used to come to my games when Pitt would play Temple.
That's awesome.
And Carlton was still trying to get down to Temple to play football.
Is that right?
Even though he was having the success that he was having as a wrestler.
Yeah.
So he would, he came to, I just remember a game that we played against Pitt. It was a storm. And, most people had left the game by then. Carlton stayed the whole game. Was at the end of the game, he's yelling, "Get me down here! Get me down!" And he was already accomplishing great things, in wrestling.
Yeah.
So, he's phenomenal, man. Good friend, good role model.
Well, I think it should be mentioned about you, All-State player, Johnstown High School, also went on to Temple University under Coach Bruce Arians, right?
Yeah.
Played against some of the best, played with some great players also.
Yeah.
But as somebody who spent 4 years, ends up going to Philadelphia Eagles camp also, right?
Yes.
Played overseas,
Yes.
professional player.
Right.
When you see somebody that didn't play college football at all make it, how's that make you feel?
Hey, man, listen. I was happy for him.
Yeah.
I was happy for him to make it. I mean, we talked throughout that process when he had told me that, scouts were looking at him and stuff like that. And actually, it's funny because we actually talked on draft day.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, we both hadn't got picked.
Yeah.
And then later on that evening, he had got a call and I hadn't.
Yeah.
I was still happy for him.
Yeah.
Because again, a good friend, great athlete, deserved a shot. You know what I mean? At that time too, they had told me in the late rounds it was probably better to go as a free agent because you had your pick of where you could go.
Gotcha.
Things worked out for him, and I'm happy for it.
But it really tells you something about somebody's character because, somebody that hadn't played football for 4 years and, all of a sudden, he's drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, that has to tell you that, that not only he has the ability to do this, but also must have an incredible work ethic, for them to think that this guy could do it.
Well, to be honest with you, he could have, had he played football in college, he just would have been a Pro Bowl earlier.
Yeah. Is that right?
If he would have played, he could have played football, Division I football. That wasn't the case. Carlton and I both didn't apply ourselves in terms of our grades. If we had the grades to go to, we both were being recruited by, a lot of schools and stuff like that for football.
Right.
It just so happened that, things took a turn, and he ended up going to Lock Haven and then going to UPJ. But he could have easily got a Division I scholarship for football.
Oh, amazing.
And, just think about how good he could have been earlier had he had, the practice and playing time that he would have got, through 4 or 5 years of college ball.
So I have to ask both of you, the Johnstown experience, the influences that both of you gentlemen had. Does this make your stories any different than any other talented player growing up in Johnstown?
I think one thing about Johnstown, man, is that, hard workers. Hard workers. I like to say that we got grit. We got just something that you can't teach.
Yeah.
It's, especially when we came up. I remember going to football camp at Temple, and football camp was easy at Temple because football camp at Johnstown was so hard. We had 3-a-days. Back then it wasn't water. You didn't get water when you felt like getting water.
Yeah.
You got water when they had a water break. So it was like, I think back then the way we played, we were tough.
Yeah.
Our whole football experience, we started out with, heavy boots. We had sweatshirts. This is in the dead of winter. We didn't know no different. Everybody else had mesh jerseys. We had jerseys. And starting out in 7th grade. So that's the way we started in football. And sometime our equipment didn't fit right. But this guy right here, Joe, he was a guy whose equipment never fit right.
That's great.
Starting from the beginning of football, his helmet always didn't fit right, but he would hit you.
Yeah.
He could play the game. So that was one thing that we was always known for. Johnstown kids will play football the way it's supposed to be played. Because we are resilient. As Joe said, we got true grit. True grit. Johnstown is a place of grit and resilience.
You're listening to Voice of Carlton Haselrig here with Joe Greenwood. We're talking about Giant Killer, the Carlton Haselrig story, which is now available for you. Carlton, I think this is another amazing thing about you that I have not mentioned yet. But, as we talked about, the Johnstown High School class of 1984 did not have a wrestling program at the high school. And yet, you become state champion. How does that happen? How does Carlton Haselrig become state wrestling champion when the school doesn't have a program?
Well, it was as we all know, wrestling is a one-on-one sport. So all I had to do was get the opportunity to get on to the mat. I had been wrestling most of my life, and once the wrestling program stopped in the 8th grade, I had wrestled a little bit here, a little bit there, worked out a little bit here, worked out a little bit there, but I never lost the passion for wrestling, and probably not having it really made the fire burn, for wrestling. So, finally the opportunity came, and I asked if I could enter to the PIAA tournament, and the school board at Johnstown was, gracious enough to let me have that opportunity. And I got the opportunity to get into the District 6 tournament, and, with an 0-0 record, and won that tournament.
Amazing.
Won that tournament.
Amazing.
And with like maybe 4 matches, whatever. Then you go to the regionals, District Northwest Regional, AAA. Won that tournament with another maybe 3-4 matches, and boom! All of a sudden I'm at states. So all it takes is 4 matches to win at states, and boom! I was a state champ. So that's how that thing went. So 10 matches and PIAA state championship.
It's just remarkable. And so high school ends, and career begins at Pitt Johnstown. And I know that Coach Pat Pecora, obviously a legend in these parts, and I know your uncle Bruce Haselrig, also another guy that had a major influence on you also. Can you tell us a little bit about those influences on you?
Well, those guys, my father, his name was Fred Haselrig, a hard worker. He worked for PennDOT and was a lifelong military man. And, he never was really like a sportsman. My father was like a guy. Yeah, my father wasn't like a guy, he's like, come on, you got to do better, get them push-ups. No, he was always about, what you going to do, work. Work. What type of work are you going to do? My wrestling career and football career and athletic career was pretty much, laden to my uncle Bruce Haselrig, who pretty much guided me through and, had a lot of influences on me. But still, even then, it was still up to me. It was still up to me to do what I needed to do to, get myself ready to play football or, take the wins and losses. They'd be there to, help you out, maybe get you to a couple places. But in terms of going and getting a ride from football practice or any other type of practice, no, that wasn't in the cards back in the day.
Wow.
No, that wasn't in the cards. So, if you're at Cochran Field, I lived in Prospect at the time, and everybody, our whole group, we all would walk. We would all walk from Cochran School to downtown Johnstown. Some guys would get on the bus and go, spread out from there. But then, Prospect bus stopped running at 5 o'clock, so I had to walk up the hill.
Oh, man. It's a very steep hill, by the way, for those of you not familiar with Prospect Hill. Yeah. 6-time NCAA heavyweight champion. We have to ask how that happens, too, because Pitt Johnstown is a Division II school, right?
That's correct.
All right.
Yes.
But you were also able to wrestle Division I wrestlers also.
Right. Well, at the time, Division II was seen as a qualifier. You know how you have qualifying tournaments as, regional tournaments. Each conference has so many qualifying athletes that they can send to the tournament. And at that time, Division II and Division III were a lot of the few, maybe 2, 3 qualifiers. So I was a lot of the qualifier because I was a national champ. I would qualify for the Division I national tournament. Now, everything has to still be in line. You still have to have your paperwork. You still have to have your right grades. Qualify for Division I. So just because you qualify Division I, it's not a sneaky way around, which a lot of people might have thought at the time. But you have to still qualify. Every way a Division I wrestler qualified for that tournament, you have to qualify as well. So I did that, and made it through and won me a couple Division I titles.
Amazing. I'm sure there's some names even the casual fan would recognize of people that you had some bouts with there as well. Anybody you've kept in contact with throughout the years or followed careers that that you could say, I beat this guy.
Well, yeah, of course. Kurt Angle was
Kurt Angle.
He was one of my nemesis early on in his wrestling career because I felt like he was a smaller guy. You know, I really felt like, you know, I didn't disrespect him. He was a good workout partner and somebody who really made me better. So I had a cousin at the time who went to Clarion University, and that was one of his teammates. So Kurt Angle had redshirted, which means takes a year off of college wrestling. So once he took his year off of college wrestling, we really became close, and I really, you know, helped him get better, and he helped me get better. So that's the thing about wrestling. That's one thing about wrestling. You're not going to get good unless you have good people to work with.
Right, absolutely. But it's amazing that you take on, like, all these world-class people. Here it is, a Johnstown guy, humble as can be, you know, like taking on these world-class people, defeating them. And it's almost like, what's next, you know? Does it become too easy for you, being so good? Does it ever get boring, Carl? You know, I've always wanted to ask you that question. Does it ever get boring? No?
I never considered myself as too good, and that's something that, you know, people have to guard against, because you know, because it becomes a problem for the person who thinks that they're too good, because there's still somebody out there that's willing to twist your knot off if they once it gets too big.
You're listening to Voice of Carlton Haselrig. He's joining us along with his friend Joe Greenwood. We're talking about Giant Killer, the Carlton Haselrig story, a book that I cannot wait to get into. Joe touched on this briefly too, Carlton. I want to ask both of you again. When the Steelers draft Carlton, you had some idea that this was going to be coming, though, Joe, right? Because, you know, that you had said that, you know, that you guys had talked previously, that this was not a surprise at all then. Did you think with your training, you know, that he was going to be able to achieve the status as a Pro Bowl player?
I was never surprised that he had the success that he had.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew the work ethic had always been there. I know the skill had always been there. It was just the opportunity.
Yeah.
You never know about those kinds of things, you know what I mean? Because a lot of times, I mean, a lot of people don't get the opportunity.
Right.
Especially somebody who never played football before.
Yeah.
So it was just, you know, somebody believing, you know what I mean, believing in him, give him a chance. And once he got the chance, it was, you know, in my mind, for real, no doubt that he was going to make the team.
Yeah.
Back then, too, having the developmental squad helped a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of players years before that wouldn't have gotten that opportunity without that developmental squad that they had. And that it just started a couple of years prior to us coming out of high school.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's a saving. That was one of the things. It was God's plan.
Right. Oh, my goodness. I mean? Yeah. Absolutely. And it is, you know, it's amazing that the career takes shape. I remember one time I was watching you play, and I don't know who the commentator was, and he says, that's Carlton Haselrig. He never even played football in high school, you know? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Let me correct you on that story. But I'm sure that story has been mistold many times.
For sure. Well, I think one thing that my whole high school team was blessed with, we had some coaches who cared, and some coaches who, you know, I had a coach who really taught me how to play my position. So, Coach Stavko, he really taught me how to play, you know, the things that I needed to do. And so I was really blessed in that aspect. He was, you know, advanced. He was an advanced coach. So I was blessed to have that at an early age, and, you know, to still have those skills ingrained in me when I did get to the NFL. So,
yeah.
You know, even, you know, some people say, I mean, a lot of wrestling is pretty much, you know, because even in football I use a lot of wrestling moves.
Yeah.
And, you know, but it's still a leverage, and it's still a one-on-one fight. So, and that's one thing me and Joe Green told me, that, hey, this is no different than a wrestling match. You know, it's you versus him.
Yeah.
So once you get that idea down pat, then it really simplifies it.
So as a Pittsburgh Steeler, how does life get more complicated for you? You know, I'm sure that's a question you get asked all the time.
Well, at that time, you know, I was still, you know, a guy who, you know, was really, you know, not in the spotlight, you know, not that type of thing. And spotlight sort of came, and, you know, now when you're in the NFL, it's a different type of spotlight, and it's something that, you know, I don't think anything that can really get you ready for that. You know, nothing that, you know, that you can do to say, now you're that, you know what I mean? Because it's different.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's different. And it's nothing that can really prepare you for that.
But I know that there are some guys that, I think of a guy like Strelzik, lineman, who has since passed, right? Tragically, you know what I mean? But when you see tragic stories like this, I'm sure it has to slap you in the face and say, oh, boy.
Of course, well, these guys, those guys were all my buddies. I mean, I know these guys. I played next to these guys, and I've sat next to these guys. I've flown on airplanes next to these guys. I've sweat with these guys, bled with these guys. And hear these guys, sad,
Right.
Big, strong, great, big old giants.
Right.
And this is where some of these giant killers come into play. Some of the opponents that I played were just giants. But then, on the other side, you have giants in my own brain with, metaphorically, fighting myself.
Yeah.
The giant could be myself.
Right.
Metaphorically. So that's the giant killer.
I'm sure that both of you could answer this, that, the big-time sports isn't necessarily as glamorous as what we might perceive it to be. There are those of us that, fantasize about playing it that never did, that think, oh, man, this must be the greatest life there is, right?
Right.
That just ain't the case, is it?
Well, it depends on how you take it, when you take it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times when it's great, and there's times whenever it's, like, this isn't what I want it to be.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of times, more times than not, it was like, this isn't what I wanted it to be.
Right. So, Joe, I'm sure that there's people out there that are thinking, I want to buy this book. I mean, this is a fascinating story about this man. What are they going to get out of it? Or is there anything that you've gotten out of this despite knowing this man for so many years?
Well, I did get, it was funny because in my mind, before I read the book, I thought to myself that, I'm going to read, I'm just reading, I'm going to know everything that's in the book.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to know I'm going to know the players, I'm going to know the content and whatever. There were some interesting parts about his home life that I didn't know about, about his mother. Always wondered about that, because I had never really met her before. So, there's a little background in the book about that. Stuff, within his family that I didn't know. It's fascinating because, again, it just tells a story of, like, okay, to go through some of the things that he went through at a young age and still, be the person he became after all that shows, again, how great this guy is. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you don't really get to, it's like sometimes you sit back and you say, I had it bad. You thought you had it bad, and you see somebody else's story, and you say, you know what? I didn't have it bad as I thought. You know what I mean?
Oh, nice. Yeah. So you don't necessarily have to be a wrestling fan. You don't necessarily have to be a football fan.
This is a life story. It's something that you can get. I think, to me, it goes back to the thing that I liked about it was, and not that I liked, what he went through, but it shows somebody who, we all come from Johnstown. We're very humble beginnings. Somebody who, again, who came from humble beginnings and then had it all. But then it shows you that even when you have it all, you don't have it all.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
And that, you know what I mean? You think that, money and fame and you're going to just have this great life. And then it shows you that, man, certain triggers and certain things can happen.
Yeah.
And, things are not just the way that you might think they might be.
But I think it's awesome, Carlton, that you use this story now to influence youth. And how important that is to both you gentlemen now, actually. This is something that's very important to you, isn't it?
Without question. As now I coach in Johnstown and I have my own children, so it starts there. It starts in my house with my children, trying to set an example for them and what I want them to be, and then it carries on to what I'm trying to give somebody else's child as a coach.
Yeah.
And those things that, I've been through some struggles, and I've been to the heights. And, I can talk to the Pope, and I can talk to the Pauper. So, those type of things are very important, and to always, the basic rules of life, the golden rule.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The golden rules, which I live by. So. And
I say it all the time behind this microphone, but when you live it, that gives you credibility. You can talk about it, and so therefore, and I'm sure there's people listening to our conversation right now, guys, that probably are saying, how can I get a hold of this book? What do you advise they do?
Right now, we're in the process of getting the website up, which will be up Probably by tomorrow.
It'll be Carlton and Carlton Giant Killer at gmail.com.
Okay. I've also seen some of the reviews. You know, some friends that have read the book that have said nothing but glowing reviews about it. And so, you know, again, you know, it's a great story. I haven't even read it yet, but I know it's a great story. Very inspirational. But I will.
Time here today.
Oh, it's awesome. Very good to see both of you again. Carlton Haselrig, Joe Greenwood, Giant Killer, the Carlton Haselrig story, chronicling a great, amazing life of Carlton Haselrig. Gentlemen, thank you both.
Thank you both.